Hello and good afternoon. I'm sorry if some people couldn't hear sound on the video. It will be available in the chat for people to look at later. I want to welcome you to the EDGE annual lecture. My name is Alice Barnard. I'm the Chief Executive of the EDGE Foundation. A little housekeeping before we start. We'll be using a hashtag today, hashtag EDGE lecture. Use this to continue the chat afterwards on Twitter. And please ask your questions through the Q&A facility, and we'll try and pick up as many of those as we can later on in the session. Without further ado, I'm delighted to introduce our speaker today, Tim Tamashiro. Tim is the author of the Amazon #1 best-selling book, How to Ikigai. He's a speaker, singer, and a former radio broadcaster from Canada. Welcome to the virtual stage, Tim. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Alice, and thank you to everyone for inviting me to be a part of this Christmas event. And I hope that today is going to be educational, but even more important, that's going to be fun and interesting, and it'll be able to hold your attention for the entire time. So thank you very, very much. As Alice mentioned, I'm a Canadian, and I live about maybe an hour away from the beautiful Rocky Mountains, but I am just so thrilled to be here with you. I'm going to just jump right into the presentation here. Oh, bear with me. I just realized that I am in the wrong slide. There we go. We're going to start right off with how to Ikigai, and this is the concept that we're going to be talking about today. I loved in the initial presentation, or the little short video clip there, about how important it is for the EDGE Foundation to be able to help students understand that life is important, and once you actually get beyond being a student, that it's important to have a life that includes a meaningful career. So we're definitely in a time where we're seeing this transition happening. I call it the Ikigai shift, where people are realizing that it's an important part of life to ensure that our self-actualization is a big part of our daily process, and it makes it worthwhile. So that's what we're going to be talking about in this presentation. How to Ikigai is a book that I wrote back in about 3 years ago, I guess. And Ikigai is a process that comes from Okinawa, Japan, where my grandparents were born. In fact, they were born on a very, very tiny little island that was about the size of the one that the boats are pointing at there. It was ridiculously small, but I've always felt that I've had some sort of a connection with living a life that is doing what I love to do and what I'm good at. So that's what I'd like to talk with you about today. So we're going to start off by pointing out that this presentation is really about answering two questions for yourself first, but also two questions that maybe you can encourage your students to be a part of. And those two questions are these: what do I love to do, and what am I good at? It's such an important part of life to answer those two questions, because that is the beginning of self-actualization. This is part of our natural need to be able to become the most that we can in life. So we're just to start off with keeping those in mind. What do I love to do, and what am I good at? For the purposes of the presentation, I want to kind of distinguish the difference also between two words that I'll be using, and they're not necessarily interchangeable in this presentation. The first word is job. Your job, according to dictionary.com, is a paid position of regular employment. Paid, keep that in mind. But your work, though, is an activity involving mental or physical effort done in order to achieve a purpose or a result. You are your work. You are the person that is responsible for creating the greatest purpose and the greatest result in your life possible. So when I'm talking about job, it's always going to be about money. But if I'm talking about work, it's always going to be about you and the work that you can put into yourself and how that benefits you from a well-being perspective. All right. When we were kids, that's a little picture of me when I was in probably the second grade. When we were kids, we knew what our work was. In fact, that was our purpose, that we were born with a set of instructions. Every single one of us was. And this set of instructions helped us through the formative part of our years to do the work that we needed to do in order to become grown-ups, essentially. And this is the interesting thing, is that this work that we were doing is something that we just innately knew. And so, for example, when we were toddlers, when we were newborn infants, the only work that we had to do was to be. We just had to exist. In fact, mom and dad would take care of all of our needs. And if we had a diaper that needs changing, we would just cry and they would tend to it. Or if we were hungry, we would cry and they would tend to it. But that was our only work to do, is to just be, just to exist. And then as we grew older, our work changed again. Because our work as a toddler, as somebody who was upwardly mobile and getting out into the world, our work was to do. We wanted to get out into the world and to explore and to try new things out. And we wanted to see what it was like if we bit the cat's tail, or if we decided to draw on the wall with a crayon. We were starting to learn the idea of consequences by just simply experimenting. Then as we grew a little bit older and we began our first foray into education, 6 or 7 years old, our work changed again, and it was to follow rules. If you can remember what it was like to be a little kid, especially in the first years of education, we wanted to know what the rules are, because that kind of defined what our world would be in school. So learning rules was an important part of this particular work that we were doing. And then we grew older, and maybe when we were early teenagers, our work changed again, and we needed to be seen by as many prospective prospects as possible, because this is all kind of caveman, cavewoman stuff, right? We wanted to kind of be paraded in front of as many people as possible, so that we had the opportunity of perhaps attracting a mate. This is all stuff that's happening chemically in the mind. And then once we kind of got a little bit older and we're entering into high school, our work changed again. And that was to make space between our parents and ourselves. We wanted to find some more greater independence. So those were that was the work that we had to do just growing up. And we knew what that work was intrinsically, because it was kind of built into our DNA. But then we got into, proper high school, what we call high school here in Canada. And we started to gain independence and to put even more distance between ourselves and our parents. We started trying out new things, like perhaps getting a part-time job and learning to drive a car and be able to become more independent. These are all things that are all part of our education, but also education as human beings. But then things started to get a little hazy around the time when we started to leave school. And adults started asking us the hardest question that we'll ever have to answer. And that is, what are you going to do now? This is a hard question to answer. Isn't this a hard question to answer? What are you going to do now? So you're 16, 17, 18 years old, and you've spent your entire education learning to do what the adults told you to do, and them expecting you to do exactly what they told you. And then once you've kind of gotten the piece of paper that says that you're done with school, then all of a sudden now you're thrown out into the world and say, okay, now make a decision that is meaningful and is going to change your entire life. What are you going to do now? This is a really, really tough question to answer for anybody, regardless if you're 18 years old or if you're 56 years old. It's still a tough question to answer. What was happening in school, especially, is that we were being prepared for our deficiency needs. We're being prepared to survive. That is it. We had the basics, the reading, writing, arithmetic, but these skills are meant to ensure that our survival is part of our everyday existence. What we weren't taught is how to self-actualize. So at the end of school, and when we were maybe entering into the world of college and university and those types of things, all of a sudden we're faced with that choose and follow through plan, to choose and follow through on a meaningful career and life. And that is extraordinarily difficult to do, especially if you have limited evidence about what that's going to be. In my case, excuse me for a moment. I had to clear my throat, I'm sorry. In my case, in the 1980s, this is 1983, 84, when I left high school, I began my life and career guessing program. My first job out of high school was to work at a self-serve gas station, petrol station, and that's what I did. Is I managed the pumps, and I made sure that they were turned on at the right time, and took people's money in exchange. But this was something that I was just trying out, and this I enjoyed going to the job every day. My friends would always stop by and hang out with me for a part of my shift, anyways, and it was actually quite enjoyable. But then I wanted to try something else, and I got invited to become a suit salesman at a retailer here in Canada called Jack Fraser Menswear. So that's what I did. I sold suits. But remember, this is back in the 1980s when my entire wardrobe was made out of gray suits with dusty rose shirts and a gray tie. So that was the fashion statement of the day. It was very, very stylish. And then beyond that, my dad got me a job working on the highways. I was a survey technician working to basically build brand new highways. And that was the career that my dad had been in throughout his entire life, was to be able to build highways and to build roadways, so that obviously Alberta is not as mature as England, so we needed the roadways. So I was really proud of him for all the work that he did on the highways. So I thought, this is a real noble profession. And back then, 1984, 85-ish, I was making $8 an hour. Now, I don't know how much you know about the 1980s, but when you made $8 an hour in Canada, it was like you were rich. You had money to burn. And I was really excited to have that opportunity to be able to make such meaningful money. But I found that the job itself wasn't meaningful for me whatsoever. In fact, I started to wonder at one point or another whether this was going to be my entire existence, whether my whole life was going to be based on just a series of jobs where I could make a living and I could save up for retirement and bet on the fact that once retirement came along, that was going to be my happy time. But I wasn't satisfied with that. In fact, when I was 21 years old, I guess, I was laying in bed on my day off from working on the highways. And oh, you're going to love this. You're going to love it. Here you go. There's a picture of me back in 1985, 84, 85. And I was laying in bed that Saturday morning, thinking to myself that I wanted more out of life. And I wanted to understand if it was even possible to do what I love to do every day, and to have that a part of my existence, so that it could not only be my job, but it could be my work. So I was confounded by this whole idea. And then, like a lightning bolt, that same morning, it just went off. And I said, I'm going to go to music school. Hence the Bon Jovi hair and the bolo tie and the earring. But that was such a major experience for me. It was like a life-changing decision. And from that moment on, I went to college and I took music and I learned how to be an entertainer. And I learned that it is possible to do what you love and what you're good at in exchange for a career and for a life as well. Why this is important is based on the absolute introductory positive psychology principle of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And I wanted to point this out because it kind of re-emphasizes, I guess, the fact that we have been prepared for our deficiency needs every day. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, of course, is a pyramid that is built on the daily needs that human beings require in order to be able to thrive and to be able to live and become the best that they can be. But the first part of Maslow's hierarchy of needs is your physiological needs. We need food and shelter and water every single day, because if we didn't have it, it would be terrifying. That's why it's a deficiency need. If we don't have these first 4 layers of the pyramid, it becomes terrifying. It becomes something that we have to have. Safety needs are absolutely important on a daily basis as well. Of course, it wouldn't feel good to be able to be living in a part of town that was unsafe, or that you had neighbors with guns or that were violent or whatever the case. We want to make sure that we have safety needs. If we don't, we become fearful and we do whatever we can in order to be able to achieve that. And then we have love and belonging needs. We want to have connection with friends and family, and that enhances our daily meaning as well and our daily happiness. And then on top of that, we also have esteem needs. So in other words, this is all ego, but it's also identity. We want to be known for something, and we want to be identified as being a thriving person in some sort of a career or some sort of a vocation, or beyond that, in some sort of a service that we provide to the community. Now, these are all deficiency needs. Like I say, if you don't get any of those, even one of them for the day, then it becomes quite terrifying. But the interesting thing about deficiency needs is that once we achieve them on a daily basis, your need for that particular deficiency decreases. So as long as we know that there's a fridge that is full of food, our physiological needs, we're going to be okay, especially if we eat periodically throughout the day. We're going to be happy. If we have a home that we can lock the door on, where we want to make sure that our safety needs are taken care of. Love and belonging, esteem needs, every single one of those things are the types of things that we are prepared to make sure that we do every day, because that is what we've been taught, especially in school. What we haven't been taught is self-actualization needs. Now, these self-actualization needs, in terms of what Maslow described, is a being need. This is something that we need to have so that we can become the most that we can be as a human being. Self-actualization is such an important part of our daily lives that it's at the top of the pyramid. However, the interesting thing about self-actualization is that a lot of us don't do it because we're stuck in the deficiency need cycle every single day. We go and we do our jobs, and then often we're just so burnt out at the end of the day that we forget, or we just don't have the energy to be able to deal with our self-actualization needs. But there's an interesting point that has been discovered through Maslow and through other positive psychology I guess examinations or evidence, is that once you actually do have some sort of a self-actualization moment every day, your growth increases. You want to do it more. So think about that. If you do something that's good for yourself, as far as self-actualization, you'll actually start wanting to do it more and more. I think that's an important part of life itself. And so you might be wondering to yourself, what is your work now? Now that you've gone through school, your students have gone through school, and they're at the point of their lives where they're kind of wondering, okay, now I'm just gonna take a guess. I'm just gonna take a guess. Is it possible to have specific work? And the answer is yes, definitely you do have work to do now. Because your work is at any point in time in your life, if you don't know the answers to the 2 questions, what do you love to do and what are you good at, is that you can explore, zero in, and ponder what the answers are to those 2 questions. Exploration is so underrated in terms of a life's mission. I really encourage people to go out there and to explore and to literally try out absolutely everything that they want in terms of what they're curious about or what they're interested in or what they're passionate about. And that often includes just the simple task of making a list. You know, if you've always been interested in skydiving, go give it a shot. If you've always been interested in astronomy, then go and take part in it. See what it feels like for you to be able to go and have that experience and see how it not only feels to you, but if you're actually providing anything to other people as a benefit as well. Once you explore, the next step is to zero in on the things that you're really passionate about, really interested in, and that you're naturally good at though as well. So yeah, you might have tried skydiving, but you realize that it wasn't the actual act of jumping out of the plane that was really interesting to you. What you were really interested in is how to pack parachutes so that they would ensure that people are going to be safe. So this essentially turns into a benefit, not only for yourself, but for everybody that puts on the parachute, right? So you're zeroing in on things that are actually interesting to you, but also benefit others as well. And then the step beyond that is to ponder what benefits you're getting from those actions and other people are. So this means stepping away from your exploring and your zeroing in. Pondering is an act that is highly underrated in that we're underestimating the power of our subconscious. I guess that's what it boils down to. Your subconscious is literally 1,000,000 times more powerful than your conscious mind. So by pondering and putting your thought about, you know, what you love to do and what you're good at and putting it into the back of your mind, your subconscious is doing the work for you. And a case in point might be if you're at your job and maybe Bob from accounting comes up and says, hey, I have a question about this, and you don't have an answer right away. You might say, you know what, Bob, let me think about that and I'll get back to you. Now, chances are you don't go back to your office and go, oh, I need to make a reminder to sit for 20 minutes and think about what it is that Bob asked me about. I need to think about this now because it's really important that I provide Bob with an answer. We don't do that. Instead, we shuffle that question into our subconscious. And by the next time you see Bob, you have an answer for him. And that's probably a really good one too, because your subconscious has come up with the answer for you. So explore, zero in, and ponder. That is our work now. That is the type of thing that we need to do in order to be able to understand who we truly are. And that's what Ikigai really is all about. Ikigai is not only the process of understanding self-actualization, but it's also a map. And here's what I mean by that. Ikigai, by the way, is 2 words in Japanese. Iki means life, gai means worth. So Ikigai is essentially your life's worth. It comes from Okinawa, Japan, as I mentioned. But and how you pronounce it, by the way, how you pronounce it is Ikigai, not Ikigai. If I was in a lime Borat bikini right now, that would be an Ikigai. No, we're talking about Ikigai. Iki, so just smile and make your cheeks all flush, and that's how you say it. Ikigai. Like I said, Ikigai provides a map for how you can achieve more purpose and self-actualization in your life, and essentially it's this. This is the most important slide in this entire deck, so I'm going to spend a little bit of time on it. Picture Ikigai as a Venn diagram with 4 circles. Each one of those 4 circles is a direction. You do what you love, you do what you're good at, do what the world needs, and do what you can be rewarded for. Think about that. How difficult, though, is that to do? Do what you love and do what you're good at, do what the world needs, and do what you can be rewarded for. The challenge with the way that we tend to look at life right now is that we forget to do what we love and do what we're good at, because we don't necessarily have answers for those two questions. But what that hampers then is essentially what does the world need? What do I have that I can provide to the world that it needs? And why would I be rewarded for that? Either financially or especially through the action of just thank you. That's essentially it in a nutshell. Ikigai is the confluence of those four circles as they come together in the middle. That is the sweet spot right there. That's what we want to kind of get to, is to have an answer for those four points or those four directions. And I'm really happy about the process and how it's helped so many people around the world. Ikigai essentially is the ability to do more you. Okay, so if that, I hope that helps understand a little bit more about what Ikigai is all about. So I guess the question now is, what is your Ikigai? And this is a time where we necessarily are stumped a lot of the times, but I can give you a few little hints, okay? Literally just start with that question. What do you love to do? Make a list of all the things that you love to do, and then eventually narrow it down. Usually in my live presentations, where I'm not talking to hundreds of people across the pond, I take some time and ask people literally individually, what do you love to do? And often what we find is that people come up with actions that are, I guess they're actions that are like self-serving. You know, I like to play football, or I love to work out, or I love to shop, or I love to whatever the case, right? But once we kind of get into the thick of it, I also indicate to people that you also love to be able to help people. And that is the essence of humanity right there. In any business and any service that we're tied into, that's what we need to do. We need to do something that is not only worthwhile to us, it's also worthwhile to other people as well. So what do you love to do will boil down to something that is meaningful not only to you, but to somebody else. So explore, zero in, and ponder. And those three actions are the things that are going to help you understand what your Ikigai is. So your work right now, no matter what age you're at, is to explore your half Ikigai. Let's just get those two questions answered, I guess. What is your half Ikigai? It's essentially the answers to those two questions. What do you love to do and what are you good at? You know, I am lousy at accounting. I am absolutely a disaster at accounting. But I know that there's people out there who are really, really good at it. So that's why I go and seek them out in order to be able to figure out and do all that service for me. There again, I know that I'm also, I'm a good singer. And I love to sing, and I do it as often as possible, but I wouldn't ask my accountant to go out and sing for me. So finding out what I love to do and what I'm good at is essentially actions that are serving myself, but they actually help somebody else down the line with my service or with my actions that are beneficial to them. So essentially, Ikigai is an action that comes with benefit. Two sides of benefits, good for you and good for someone else. To name an Ikigai is to start with the preposition to, because to implies that your intention. To serve, to teach, to create, to heal, to nourish, to connect, to provide, to build. Every single one of these Ikigai are actions that not only serve you, but they serve other people. So in the case of teaching, if you're good at teaching and if you love to do it, then obviously the benefit is the student. And they're going to be able to glean, you know, your wisdom and be able to put it into action on your own behalf. By the way, really, really effective, really great teachers are the ones who get thanks all the time and are always appreciated. So I really hope that that is the case for every single one of you, because according to everything that I see as far as the EDGE Foundation is concerned, that's what you're working towards, to be able to provide a benefit to not only yourself, but especially to the students. So congratulations on that. Interestingly, in the world of business, to build is an obvious Ikigai. But there again, when you think about what building means, it could mean all sorts of different things. Think of Ikigai as a gem, I guess. And if you think of Ikigai like a diamond has many facets, and each one of the facets does something different. So if you're going to say that you're a business person and your Ikigai is to build, you're going to be able to build careers for people. You're going to be able to build a company. You're going to be able to build services. You're going to be able to build a customer base. You'll be able to build a following, fans, families. There's all sorts of things that you can do in terms of what your Ikigai is. So just keep that in mind when you're thinking about naming your own Ikigai. And I guess that really is the challenge that I would issue to every single person here, is to name your Ikigai. Because when you name your Ikigai, you're giving power and responsibility to it. And naming is part of knowing. It's a beautiful part of knowing and to provide direction. So if there's a way that you can name your Ikigai after exploring, zeroing, and pondering, it's going to be helpful for you. Essentially, what I talk about in my book is that Ikigai has many, many more benefits than what the ancient Okinawans even thought it might have. In fact, positive psychology is demonstrating now that Ikigai has many actions that are beneficial for a variety of reasons, and especially your health and your own specific well-being. There is a course that's being taught at Yale University now, and it's called The Science of Well-Being. This is the most popular course in the history of Yale University. Yale's been around for 300 years. And but this particular course, this is the one that everybody, all the students want to take, because it helps the students self-actualize, essentially. Dr. Laurie Santos is the professor that teaches this course. It's available, by the way, for free on the Coursera digital education platform. If anybody wants to take this course, it is a game changer, and it will change your life in the most amazing way possible. In fact, I'll tell you this right now. When I took the Science of Wellbeing course, it was kind of like I was binge watching a Netflix series. It was that interesting, and I loved absolutely every second of it. So if you like to binge watch or be binge educated, that's the course for you. So what is the Science of Wellbeing all about? Well, essentially what Dr. Santos points out is that it turns out that human beings are very, very bad at guessing what makes them happy or what increases their well-being. We think that the perfect body and the nice car and the beautiful house in the country and all these types of things, that those are the things that are going to make us happy. The truth is, according to research, those things do make you happy for a short amount of time. For a short amount of time. It does actually increase your base level happiness for a short amount of time, but then it wears away. You know, if you've ever had a new car, you know what it feels like to drive it for the first month and then down the line kind of go, it's just a car, right? The things that do make us happy, according to positive psychology and according to Dr. Santos's research, are simple things like acts of kindness. Santos points out that if you do one simple act of kindness, it can increase your overall well-being, your overall happiness level for the next 30 days. One act, just one act of kindness. That's all you have to do. Imagine doing an act of kindness every single day. Ikigai, by the way, is an act of kindness. If you're doing yourself and you're providing that to people generously, that's an act of kindness. Social connection, spending time with your loved ones and your friends and the people that you enjoy at work, that raises your base level happiness. So if you're a bit of a loner, just try spending some time with your friends and family and see how that boosts your well-being. Mind control is also something that is absolutely well known now around the world. Things like meditation and mindfulness, these things boost overall well-being by a lot, because what it does is it rewires your mind away from your fear center and puts you into a spot where you can actually remind yourself that you have nothing to fear. This is a way to be able to control your mind so that you're able to live more effectively, and you can do it at the drop of a hat. So if you've never tried meditation or mindfulness, now might be the time, because it's going to help you for years down the road, probably for the rest of your life. Healthy habits obviously are things that are important to do. Exercise, boost serotonin, boost dopamine, and obviously we all need to get out for a walk every now and then. But the one action that makes us happy, according to Dr. Santos and the research that she's done, is time affluence. Time affluence means you're time rich. It means you do with your time what you want to do with your time. Think about the power of that. Time affluence. If you were affluent monetarily, that means you could do anything because you had the money and the resources to be able to do anything that you wanted to, right? But if you're time affluent, if you're time rich, and you do with your time what you want to, that means that you're doing, you have the terms. You decide the terms on which the way that you're going to be able to spend your time. So that's a very important part of everyday life. And why is that necessary? Well, I think the action or the story that probably best exemplifies that is the action that my dad taught me throughout my life. And there's a picture of him at his 90th birthday. And those are 90 candles on his birthday cake. And yes, we lit every single one of them on fire, and it was like a 3-alarm fire. And then we set the cake down in front of him. We said, "Blow out your candles, Dad." And then we realized that he was wearing oxygen. That was probably not the best thing to do. Sorry about that, Dad. He looked really, really good without the eyebrows, by the way. But my dad was, like I say, he was a provider, and he came from the generation that really wanted to make sure that everybody was just taken care of and fed, period. That's all it was. It was all just survival. And that's the reason why he worked so hard all of his life. But even though he worked hard and he was a good provider, he also wanted to try things that he never, ever got the chance to try, like travel. But I'll always remember the greatest lesson he taught me. It was on November 16th, 2014. And it was one of the days where it was just gray enough cloud cover, where if you're standing inside near a window, it wasn't quite enough light to be able to fill the room. So you'd have to turn on a light. It was one of those kind of days. And he was in his, he was in the hospital, and he was in the last days of his life. November 16th, I held his hand and asked him just a simple question. I said, "Dad, do you know what day it is? Like, is this a special day?" And he goes, "Yeah, Tim, this is November 16th. This is the day your mom died 24 years earlier." And I said, yeah, good memory. I was thinking about that day too. And then he said to me, rather, I said to him, I said, do you understand what is happening for you right now, Dad? And he said, "Yeah, I do, Tim." And he said, "Everybody gets a turn." And I knew exactly what he meant by that. He meant everybody gets a turn to die. And in fact, he died the very next day. And it still hurts to even talk about to this day, but everybody gets a turn. That just rings in my head. I can remember the inflection of his voice and everything. But I knew what he meant. He meant that everybody gets a turn to die. But then I started thinking about it, and I thought, you know what? There are facets to that statement as well, because in order to be able to have your turn to die, you first have to live, don't you? You have to make the most out of your chance to live and to have a life that is fully actualized and to reach the greatest potential that you have in terms of your own personal well-being and happiness. So I thought to myself, well, that's going to be my battle cry, I guess, for life, is that everybody gets a turn to live. And he died, like I say, the very next day. So the question, I guess, out of this presentation is, what are you going to do with your turn? Are you going to just focus on deficiency needs? Or are you going to make sure that you can have enough savings in the bank account so that someday you can retire and then live your life? Or do you want to start that right away? Do you want to have the opportunity to be able to live your life more fully by understanding yourself greater in better ways? Do you want to know what you love to do? Do you want to know what you're good at? That is the start for you to understand and to realize your Ikigai. And if you can answer those two questions, what are you good at and what do you love to do? You can name your Ikigai and you can put it into action. My Ikigai, by the way, is to delight. And that's something that I get to do every single day. And I love to do it every chance that I can. And that can be at the grocery store when I'm talking with a clerk, or it can be walking down the road with my dog and seeing a neighbor and having a chat and sharing a compliment, or it could be as simple as singing a song. And but that's something that I love to do. And I hope that you have been delighted today with my presentation. I really want to thank everybody at Edge Foundation for including me as part of this presentation. And I hope it was worthwhile and meaningful to you. And here's to you and your Ikigai. Thank you.
Tim, thank you very much indeed. That was an absolutely incredible and thought-provoking session, particularly listening to the last part about your father. And it reminds me of something that someone once said to me. That reminds me of the everybody gets a turn. And that's the phrase, you only live once. And someone said to me, well, actually, that's not quite right. You only die once. You get to live every day.
Amen.
I kind of think that you've encapsulated a lot of that in what you've had to say. And I think it's incredibly important that we think about that for ourselves, but also for the young people that we are responsible of educating, but also that we are hoping to be able to shape government policy to reflect a better and more engaging curriculum that will allow more young people to be able to develop their Ikigai. Now, I know we've had a few questions come through, so let me just have a look at the first one for you, Tim.
Yeah, Alice, I wanted to just make one little point before we take the questions. The interesting thing is that right now in the world, because of COVID, our entire existence has changed and the world has changed. And we're noticing something, especially in America and Canada, is that something called the Great Resignation. And people are quitting their jobs like crazy by the millions. But the interesting thing is the unemployment rates are not going up. People are quitting their jobs to go into doing work that they love to do and that they're good at. They're becoming consultants, or they're setting up an Etsy shop, or they're doing things that within their community, volunteering or retiring, or doing the things that are most important to them. So now we're seeing the big change that I call the Ikigai shift, is that people are essentially saying, you know what, life is important, but a real meaningful life includes a meaningful job.
I think that you probably encapsulated a lot of what people are thinking post-COVID, although I hasten to say post-COVID because it still feels like we're in the grip of it now. So one of the first questions that have come through is, so for students and teachers who are new to Ikigai, what would your top 5 tips for embracing the philosophy be?
I would say number one, just understand that Ikigai is real, and Ikigai has lots of benefits to it. So first tip was to be learn how to say it, because in Japanese, the letter I actually sounds out as E. So that's why it's Ikigai. And number 2, exemplify it, do what you love to do and do what you're good at. The best lessons in anybody's existence is to be able to see somebody actually do what they're good at. We look at celebrity culture as the be all end all and something that we all want to aspire to and whatnot. But think of Oprah Winfrey if she wasn't sharing something that was literally herself authentically, or think of anybody in the world, Robbie Williams. I mean, you name anybody, Ted Lasso. When you think about it. The third thing would be to just kind of think in terms of yourself. It's okay to think for yourself and to just focus on yourself. In fact, it's absolutely necessary. If you're going to self-actualize, you need to be greedy about you so that you can become authentically yourself, and then you eventually start sharing it. The fourth tip I would say is to think in terms of the two benefit solution. Always think in terms of a two benefit solution. If you're doing something authentically that is all about you, just remember that you can help other people by doing that. Ikigai is a boomerang, essentially, and that if you put out yourself authentically, that is something that the world says, we need that, and thank you. And then you just got to throw it out again. And the fifth one, I would say, is spread the word of Ikigai. The interesting thing about Ikigai is that, yes, it does come from Okinawa. Not a lot of people really know what Ikigai is, but there was one time in the history of the world where nobody knew what karate was either. Karate came from Okinawa as well. And once it started spreading around the world and people started embracing the philosophy, not only of the self-defense part of it, but also the belt system, then it turned into benefits for a bunch of people. And now billions of people around the world know what karate is, and people love it.
Thank you very much indeed, Tim. Another question that's come in, another good one. Do you have any tips for exploring possible answers to what do you love? Young people find this really hard to answer, perhaps due to their lack of life experience.
Yeah, and that was, and again, I would just say, just be authentic in the fact that, pardon me. I'm recovering from pneumonia. I apologize for the cough break there. I would just say, just be authentic in yourself and be a good example. Obviously, children are not going to have the answers to those questions immediately, but we also have hints about what we love to do in our childhood. I loved art and I loved singing and I loved music when I was a little kid. Those were things that in a traditional education system, they would be discouraged as a career or as something that was worthwhile. But think in terms of what music would be, what our lives would be without music. There would be no music in video games, there'd be no music in movies, on the radio, in any part of our lives. So don't discourage whatever their passion is. And if that is YouTube, then encourage them to explore it and to try it out and see if they have a benefit for themselves and for others.
Thank you, Tim. And you mentioned celebrities, and I think it's a really interesting point. The way society values what success looks like is pretty fake these days. How do we rebalance the shift in society to more towards the Ikigai philosophy?
I think we have to think in terms of smaller benefits. The celebrity culture is more of a one-way street. I feel it's more of a me, as opposed to what am I doing in order to be able to help you. So what I mean by thinking smaller is to think in terms of what your own community, what gifts you have that you can share right now in your own community, within your own circle of friends, or within your family, or whatever the case. Let's think smaller. And I know that's hard to do with kids because they want the attention and they want the dopamine rush of getting followers and all that other kind of stuff. Unfortunately, the downside to that is something that I call fame illness. And fame illness comes with a lot of negative comments, and it comes with people being challenged by putting their opinions out there. It comes with self-esteem lows. It comes with challenges in and their own psychology. And I think that we need to embrace the fact that all celebrities are human beings first, and that they are good at something that appeals to a wide variety of people. Secondly, Alice, we saw something happen a couple of weeks ago that was really quite profound. In celebrity culture. And I think it has a lot to do with what's happened with COVID and the way that we're changing our perspective on life. We saw Adele release her new album, which is all about her challenges with divorce and all the hardships that she had as a human, as a woman dealing with divorce, especially with children. We also saw Taylor Swift release a brand new album that was actually songs of her former catalog, but she was empowering herself by re-recording those songs and making them hers again. So now she's going to make the revenue and be able to own those songs again. And there was one more. Oh man, I'm losing it. There was one more, but I just can't remember. But the point is that we are seeing celebrities now in a completely different light. We are seeing them as human beings who have had extraordinary situations that in many, many cases, they are not prepared to deal with. And if psychology and therapy has to be a part of the celebrity process from now on, period. We have to see them as human beings first, and that they get the opportunity to be able to be themselves without the criticism and all that other kind of stuff. But we need to make sure that they have medical and well-being and therapy in order to be able to deal with them. That was probably rambling.
No, excellent response, Tim. We have time for one final question. And it is, does Tim have any suggestions for when you have Ikigai for a period, but then you feel you lose it later in life?
You know what, things are going to change throughout your life. And the one point that I didn't, or the one points that I didn't get to in terms of understanding what life work is the fact that we all have work to do as adults as well. And Carl Jung indicated that we have four portions of adulthood as well. They're called the athlete, the warrior, the senator, and the spirit. Each one of those kind of defines an age, but also the work that we're kind of forced to do just as human beings. If you're an athlete, it means you're all focused on your body and your beauty. If you're a warrior, that means that you're still beautiful and still powerful, but you want to be known for doing something very, very specific. So kind of think mid 30s, early 40s. When you get into the senator mode, though, this is the real opportunity to be able to thrive, I feel, because when you become a senator, you get to the point where you're able to kind of say, I know what I'm capable of doing that. I know I can do anything that I want to, and I know what my skill sets are. What is it that I can do in order to be able to help you achieve what you need to achieve? Senator role is really the sweet spot of Ikigai, in my opinion. And then the spirit stage is something that we go to where, we've had our life, and now we're just an energy living a human experience, and we're preparing for whatever is next in the world. So if you feel you've lost your Ikigai, think in terms of where you're at in terms of those four roles that Carl Jung described. If you feel you've lost it, just go back to exploring, and eventually it will reveal itself to you.
Thank you so much, Tim. I think you've covered off so much ground. It's been incredibly thought-provoking, which is what we wanted this year's annual lecture to focus on, to stimulate ideas, for us to ask questions of ourselves and of the system that we work within. And I think you've covered that off beautifully. It's been a pleasure to host you this afternoon. I am keen to encourage the audience to carry on with the conversation online on Twitter using the hashtag #EdgeLecture. Tim has kindly agreed to stick around to answer a few more of your questions, and I know there are quite a few more that are pending, which I wasn't able to get to. If you enjoyed the talk and would like to find out more about Edge and our work, then join our network, visit our website. The link is in the chat. Thank you to everybody who has joined us this afternoon, who's asked questions, who've put notes in the chat. Most of all to Tim, who, despite recovering from pneumonia, has done a foot perfect set for us. I just would like to finish finally by saying thank you very much on behalf of the whole team at the Edge Foundation. Merry Christmas to everybody and a Happy New Year. Thank you, everybody.